Alright, now lay out the front part of your clutch with the right side facing up. My front pocket is down here at the bottom, and this is the top edge. Now grab your zipper, and you want to place it face down. So the zipper tab is here and it's face down, and my zipper tab is on the right. And I'm lining that up with the top edge. Now grab your pins or your clips, and you want to attach that in place. Now grab one of your lining pieces, and you want to place it with the right side touching the right side of your fabric. Make sure the part that has the interfacing is down towards the bottom. Now line that up at the edges, and then you can remove the pins and pin again, but I just like to add some pins right on top. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and take this to our sewing machine and stitch it down. Alright, I have the edge lined up with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I have my stitch length at 2.5. I've lowered my needle. I'm going to begin sewing and back stitch. And I'm going to continue sewing until I get to the end and back stitch again. Now when you get close to the zipper tab on the other end, you can zip it down to move it out of your way. But if you cannot, just go ahead and lift up the needle and clip your thread, move it out of your way. Return back to your sewing machine and just continue stitching. Alright, now take your lining and flip it over your zipper. Flip it. And now you want to take this to your iron and you want to press it down. Now what I like to do is lay my pressing cloth on top, and then I like to take my iron and press here, but not on top of my zipper teeth, so you can feel where that's at. And then I like to press. After that is nicely pressed, we're going to take it to our sewing machine and do a top stitch. Alright, I'm going to top stitch using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Because I have 1/4 of an inch on my presser foot. If you do not, we just want to stitch close to the top edge to hold that down in place. I'm going to change my stitch length to 3.0. Alright, now you can take this to your iron, give it a press, and use your pressing cloth. Next, lay out your clutch with the right side facing up. Grab your other main fabric piece, lay it with the right sides together, line up the top edge and pin in place. Now flip it over, take your other lining piece, lay it on top, match up the top edge and pin. Alright, now you're going to repeat the same exact steps. Stitching a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance to hold that down, press it, and then top stitch. I'm not going to show that on camera, so if you need to rewind the video to see that process again, go ahead and do that at this time, and then we will move forward. Alright, after you have everything nice and top stitched and attached to your zipper, it's now time to put right sides together. So your main fabric, right sides together, and then on the opposite side, have your lining with the right sides together. Now it's time to pin everything. So what I like to do is first start down at the lining, lining everything up and pinning in place. So down here we're actually going to leave a 5-inch opening so that we can turn it right sides out. So I like to put pins going in the opposite direction to let me know where to start and stop. So I like to put them upside down so I know I'm going to start here and stop here. Oh, also before we pin up the other side, let's open up our zipper. I like to open it about 3/4 of the way. Alright, let's continue pinning. Add some pins along the outer edges. Alright, quick tip, as you're pinning and you get right here where the lining and the main fabric meet, remember that zipper tab that we made, there's like some, and the zipper, there's that excess fabric. So what you want to do is, as you're pinning, make sure that the zipper and the zipper tab is facing towards your lining, so it'll nicely fold on itself. So just pinch it to lay it, and make sure that your that the seams are lined up with each other. So the seam on this piece and the seam on the front and the seam on the back are lined up with each other. Alright, now we're going to take this to our sewing machine, and then starting on our lining piece, we'll start at one of our starting pins, and we will begin stitching all the way around until we come back to our stopping pin. Alright, I have the edge lined up with 1/2 inch seam allowance, 2.5 stitch length, removing my starting pin. Begin sewing, back stitch, continue sewing, when you get about 1/2 inch away from the edge, stop. Alright, leave your needle down in your fabric, lift up your presser foot and turn, and keep sewing at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, I'm a 1/2 inch away from the edge, leaving my needle in my fabric, lifting up my presser foot, turning, and I'm going to keep sewing until I get to the other corner. Okay, lifting up my presser foot, pivoting, and I'm going to continue sewing until I get to the next corner. Away, lifting up my presser foot, turning. I'm going to keep sewing until I get to my stopping pin, and then I'm going to back stitch. Alright, before we turn this to the right side facing out, grab your scissors, and in each of the 4 corners we're going to snip. So don't cut through your threads, and I also like to shape it to give it a nice crisp point. So first I cut at an angle Then I trim off the sides around the corner. So trim all 4 corners in this manner. Alright, in the zipper area, I also like to trim down the bulk. Right here, I like to snip. Be careful not to be too rough and cut through your stitches. And then I also like to trim the seam allowance in this area and the zipper tab in the seam allowance. And then repeat the process on the other side. Alright, now you're going to reach inside of your opening and come to the other side and begin pulling it through. I'm going to take my pointer and I'm going to push it through and really get out these corners here. Alright, now we need to close up our opening on the lining. So to close this up, go ahead and put the excess fabric on the inside. Make sure that it's nice and even. And then we are going to run a stitch across the entire bottom to close that up. Alright, I'm going to begin my stitches about 1 inch away from the corner here. I have it lined up with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I'm about 1 inch away from the other side, so now I'm going to stop and backstitch. Alright, now take your lining and push it towards the inside of the clutch. Really push those corners. I'm going to take my point turner and get in there. Make sure you push out your corners near the zipper area. Really push those out. Now you can take this to your iron. I like to do it on, flip it to the back, put my pressing cloth on top, and give it a nice good press. Also fold your clutch over and give it a nice press along the top where the fold is. And we are going to hem the 2 ends of our strap. So you can use your seam gauge. I'm going to use my Wonder Tape here, but you want to press it up 1/4 of an inch. Alright, now the next thing that we're going to do is fold it in half. And we're going to press that and create a crease. Then we will open it back up, take the end, fold it to meet the crease on both sides. Then we'll sandwich it together, folding it to meet one another. And then we are going to do a stitch on both sides to close this up. Alright, starting on the open end, I've lined up the edge with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I've changed my stitch length to 3.0. Now on the opposite end, we're also going to stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. When you get to the end, backstitch again and then give your strap a nice press. Alright, now take your strap and your hooks, grab one end and push it through and fold it to the back, just like that. Now we are going to stitch right on top to secure this in place. Alright, so now you just want to go ahead and stitch on top of that. So you're going to sew forward and then back stitch. It's quite challenging for me to record this because I'm all up in here and my hand is all in the way, so you won't be able to see what I'm doing. Yeah, because I don't want a crooked stitch, but I do keep my hands here as I'm sewing so that I can have a nice stitch. So I sew forward one time and then I back stitch, or you can just sew forward 2 times if that's better for you. Alright, give both ends a nice press where you have just sewn and you are done with the strap. Right, now it's time to do the tassel. Grab your cord, your leather cord, and I cut my piece about 120 inches long. 120, 150 is good. Now I'm going to take one end and begin wrapping it around my hand. So just first it's coming a little bit past my hand, and then now I'm just going to begin wrapping. Alright, when you have about 10 inches left, go ahead and stop. Take it off of your hand, and now take that 10-inch piece and begin wrapping it around the top. Bring up that other loose end and go ahead and make a knot, tying those 2 pieces together. Tie it about 3 or 4 times. Alright, come down here to the bottom. Make sure it's evenly parted, and you can go ahead and cut that open. Bring down those 2 loose ends, and you can even those out with your other pieces. Now bring over your clasp and your jump ring. If you have some jewelry pliers, that'll be good. I'm going to take my pliers and push it through the center to open that up so I can get my jump ring through. Now I'm going to open my jump ring, open it up pretty wide. Going to slip it on. I'm going to grab my clasp and slip it on the jump ring, taking my flat pliers, and I'm going to close up the jump ring. Alright, and that's your tassel. Now all you have to do is hook it on to your zipper. And you are good to go with that. Everyone, that concludes the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something and are getting ready to create a bunch of crossbody bags that double as clutches. Be sure to comment down below, like this video if you want to see more tutorials from me. Check out my blog post, and yeah, I will see you all in the next tutorial. All right, until next time.